Callum. So Callum from AUSVEG is the biosecurity coordinator and will give us an overview of the currently probably worst incursions we have, or emerging pests we have to deal with, which affect onions and unfortunately also other crops. Callum, you happy to start?
Absolutely. Thanks, Doris, and thanks for the introduction. And look, I appreciate you guys coming and attending live. I think important thing is that we get this down and make it available for others to download and learn from at other points in time as well. So look, thanks for giving me this opportunity. Now I'm just going to share with you my PowerPoint. Now I know there's a few slides there, but I will be very quick about moving through this because it's a little bit to discuss. But today I'm just going to be talking about emerging already arrived insect pests for onions that cross over with the vegetable industry as well. So okay. So the introduction to what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about where I've come from, what the program that I run, some exotic pests of concern for onions and vegetables as well, just highlighting those ones that are major and across both our industries. I'm going to have a very quick talk about the pathways onto farm. I think that's one of these areas where all growers has very similar application for all farmers, plant farmers. And then I'm going to talk primarily about two recent arrivals affecting vegetables and potato production. Now this is going to cover leaf miners and fall armyworm, and I'm probably going to spend more time on the leaf miners because it covers three different species that two of which have just arrived in the country and are regarded as high priority pests for the onions industry. Finally, I'm going to talk a little bit about fall armyworm. That's not a high priority for the onion industry and its biosecurity plan, but it does target onions. It is present across the country and can conceivably be quite a bit of an issue in the coming few couple of years. So I thought I would just raise that as an issue, and then we'll finish with conclusion and questions. So my name's Callum Fletcher. I'm the biosecurity coordinator at AUSVEG. Where the AUSVEG is the peak industry body for the vegetable industries. Now, onions is not part of that, but my remit for the program covers all vegetables basically. So I have Zali Mali working with me, and also Maddie Quirk works in a urban biosecurity program as well. So there's a number of us working in the biosecurity space, and then more broadly working across other areas such as plant health surveillance and smart trapping and other high priority pests affecting the vegetable system. So within the structure of AUSVEG, which is based in Melbourne, we have our science and extension division and this project within it. So it's an ongoing project, and one thing I'm very happy about and proud about this project is that it's a sustained investment in extension. A lot of the time, various extension projects are restricted to short periods of time, and of course that makes it very difficult for extension officers to develop those relationships with the growers and agronomists working in their industry. So our project has actually been going since 2014 in various forms. Our current structure has been running since 2018. We've just had a review, and they've agreed to continue funding with some slight changes in terms of extension to reflect COVID. And frankly, I think it's a great way, great project plan that we've got going ahead for the next couple of years. So it's not funded through your vegetable levy. It's actually funded through the plant biosecurity, PHA biosecurity levy, matched by the Commonwealth. So this is something I try and sort of make clear that to growers, and basically we're here to support all growers in the vegetable industry, and I like to include tomatoes and onions and other commodities that are outside of that, because basically the biosecurity threats that face those industries, along with melons and and other like nurseries, other industries. I think it's really important that we work together and we focus on the key targets that will impact all of our industries. So I'm just saying, I'm here, Zali's here, and if please feel free to contact me if you do have any areas of where we might be able to help. We certainly work with growers to sort of help them find ways to develop farm biosecurity plans. We have signs to give away. We have a lot of resources, and basically we're here to support industry in a biosecurity sense. So if there's anything you can do, feel free to contact me. The nature of our program is sort of three distinct areas: industry, government, and academia, universities. So basically, we focus on improving biosecurity risk preparedness and response mechanisms. So that's basically preparing industry for the arrival of high priority pests, and we'll get to those for the onions and vegetables industries soon. We also are part of the response architecture. So basically, anytime something new comes into the country, industry, state governments and federal governments will make joint decisions on whether on the viability of a response, whether there is an eradication program that can be run, and whether it is a high priority pest to target. So unfortunately, in the vegetable industry, we're constantly being really bombarded with new detections because the vegetable industry covers such a large group of horticultural products or crops. So some of those will go to eradication. Some of those eradications will be successful. Some of them will be unsuccessful. Those that are unsuccessful, we help shepherd that into R&D programs and transition to management responses. So basically moving it from a government-funded, government and industry shared funded response, cost shared response, to an industry funded management phase. And that's really key, because there can be a really significant lag time between when something arrives in the country, government passes it off onto industry because it's unable to be eradicated, and then when industry takes over with funding R&D programs and extension programs, etc., to help industry better manage these new pests. So
Callum, it might be quite good to mention that for those who don't know, Plant Health Australia has a website, and a lot of information is available from that website, and also the onion biosecurity menu for growers and agronomists, which actually really explains very well what the high priority pests are, which is with good images, so you can see what the enemies look like.
Yes, absolutely right. And the Plant Health Australia website is a great resource, has a range of information on all commodities in the plant space, and all high priorities, useful fact sheets, etc. So we work in that space. We're working with government in that incursion response. We're working to engage with industry in terms of extension, highlighting preparedness and risks. And I'll talk a little bit about risks that we talk to on farm susceptibility, the arrival of new pests and diseases. And then finally, we also have a component where we develop research programs that combat and help prepare Australia for the arrival of new high priority pests. So this focus on surveillance, diagnostics, and other areas where the Australian biosecurity system could be improved. And this does not just cover vegetables, it doesn't just cover horticulture, but part of it can include all plant industries, even outside of plant industries in certain circumstances. And we've been very successful in getting a number of those biosecurity related research programs up and running with major partners such as CSIRO, the state departments of agriculture, various universities, and so forth. So that's the sort of three-pronged approach that we have, and I will get on to the topic at hand. Okay, so I mentioned exotic pests of concern. Doris mentioned the Onions Biosecurity Manual. For vegetables, there are a range, and as you can imagine, they're huge. And some of you will be also growing vegetables, but I just thought I'd highlight a few here. There's top left. There's the varroa mite on the European honeybee there, significant pest which we've managed to eradicate multiple times in Australia, both the Varroa jacobsoni and the Varroa destructor. These are incredibly destructive pests. I come from New Zealand. We were unable to eradicate it from New Zealand when it arrived, and it has had an ongoing costly impact on industry since the early 2000s when that happened. So Australia is in a very, very strong position by not having this, because that is a major impact on our pollinators. The bottom left there is the Lyromyza sativa, or the vegetable leaf miner, which we'll be focusing on today. We've got some others there, such as the Colorado potato beetle, the striped beetle on the left there, the giant African snail in the center there, a brown marmorated stink bug to the right, and I believe that is Charactis nematode. I think, or root knot nematode. I'm not sure. I'm sorry about that. But either way, these are pests that have arrived in Australia or have been detected and eradicated and contained. So apart from the vegetable leaf miner, which is, I will get into a little bit more details there. But what I'm saying is that sometimes pests will arrive, they will be detected, and they will be eradicated, which is fantastic news for industry, because once they're here, they are very costly to contain. If we can beat them at the border or near border, then industry benefits significantly.
Early reporting is really important. So
that's exactly.
If anybody finds anything, it's not much point just stepping on it, because it will just create a bigger problem.
Exactly, and that's been a key factor in many of these eradication programs. Being able to be such as the Varroa jacobsoni and the Townsville port, these have been able to be caught early and contained to a small geographic location, and process has been begun to systematically destroy those populations, which has been successful. So Doris mentioned the high priority pests for onions. Now, there are a range of pathogens, but I thought I'd just focus, I'm an entomologist, so I thought I focused on the insect pests. Here we've got onion thrips, which of course you already have, but these exotic strains and biotypes are a significant risk, because they potentially have resistance to a range of chemical classes and other resistance genes. So yes, tricky, very tricky, because of course it's very difficult without molecular testing. It's impossible without molecular testing to be able to distinguish those new biotypes. And potentially these ones can come in through cut flowers or other pathways, and could establish themselves. So certainly an area that we within the vegetable industry and within onions have a strong level of similar issues being faced. So we're definitely on board to support and work with the onions industry in containing and stopping the arrival of seriously threatening biotypes of already established pests in Australia, because we recognise that they are a significant risk to us. You've also got the bean fly, which is, I believe, also a high priority pest for the vegetable industry, and the onion fly as well. I'm not noticing that we've got to be quick. So these are, this just to illustrate the point of successful, the arrival of or containment of successful containment of a range of pests. Snails come in all the time on shipping containers and have been caught and contained at the ports. Similarly, like I mentioned, the varroa mite is a great case study in successfully multiple times containing and eradicating through a sentinel hive network and actively engaged beehive keepers who basically have reported sick hives or sick bees and got containment and eradication underway. Okay, so the next part I'm going to talk about is a general focus on pathways into farm. So when I talk to growers, it's not just the border that's going to the federal government at the border that's going to contain any arrivals of new pests. It's not just the state governments that will eradicate those pests. Sometimes they do get across those two barriers, and industry has to deal with these things. But there's a lot that you can do on your property that can help increase the odds of early detection or eradication for endemic pests on your property. So it's basically a farm hygiene measures that can help to stop the spread of harmful pathogens and insects onto your property, which of course has a significant financial benefit to you. If you can contain or not introduce pathogens that you have to manage, then that can have a significant benefit to your bottom line. So the ones that I target, so of course we do have the pathways into Australia, which I have mentioned. These ones are at our borders, but once we get past that, it's at your border of your farm gate. So a significant pathway is vehicles and equipment. I try and talk, encourage growers to use clean down facilities, to invest in clean down facilities. I understand that they are expensive, but work has been done overseas that measures cost benefit analysis of the implementation of farm washdown facilities and stopping the spread of especially harmful soil-borne pathogens. I know that that's an area that Doris works on, has worked on significantly in the past, and maybe we could discuss that.
That's probably a good point, Callum, that farm hygiene is not only helping against exotic or emerging pests and diseases, it's just really helping spread of weeds and diseases generally. So it's worthwhile getting better at it. Yeah.
Absolutely, Doris. That's certainly true. And I think from what I've felt with discussions with growers is those are actually the highest priorities. Those pests and diseases that are currently present but in Australia, but just not on your property at the moment. It's the longer you can keep those out or stop those spreads, the more beneficial it is to you as a farmer. So definitely a key area worth investing in. And so here's an illustration of the one at the TIA research station. Now, that's all got all the bells and whistles, but certainly worth thinking about. And it helps, to contain vehicles to particular properties. If you've got multiple sites, there is a risk that you can move pathogens and other insects, of course, from one site to the next. So that's other pathways of packaging bins and pallets. Okay, recycling pallets and so forth can mean that green leafy material or soil is moved with the pallets and allowing it for transmission, movement from property to property. Use new where you can sanitize new bins and so forth, and sanitize those that you are clean and sanitize those that you are reusing. Waste and weeds. This is an important area that disposal of byproduct from your farming activities. Basically, weeds and waste can be a great source, a reservoir for pests and diseases to develop. And this is not just on your farm. People's compost bins, etc., in towns can also be a great reservoir. So it's really worth keeping an eye out and disposing, deep burial, burning compost and weeds and waste. People, of course, are a significant pathway by vehicles and also by clothing. One thing I really want to I try to push with farm growers is that you own your property. You are the sole determiner of who can and cannot come onto your property, and the behavior that you expect of them, you can enforce. So one of the cheapest, simplest, easiest things that you can do is set up farm biosecurity signs at the entrances to your property and require that that visitors, be they consultants, agronomists, resellers, people trying to sell products, they have to go through your induction or visitor sign-in system, so that you know who they are, where they've come from. So if you are interested in getting access to farm biosecurity signs, I know that we've been working with a range of extension officers around the country. We have many to give away, and I encourage you to get in contact with me. My email will be at the end of this presentation, and we'll try and get some signs for you.
Probably one cohort here, apart from the agronomist, is to reach, especially in Tasmania, are contractors. There are a lot of contractors, and there's a great reluctance and very difficult it is to actually clean machinery, but it is important to at least increase awareness and keep movement records, have a bit of a better handle on things. But it is very difficult if there are a lot of contractors doing work on the farm.
Yep, but you're paying them, you're the boss, and frankly, it's you're within your rights to ask of appropriate behaviour from them. So totally understand, totally accept that, Doris. But growers can require that. Planting material, seed and seedlings are potentially a pathway. Making sure you use tested imported seed, or that your suppliers are reputable suppliers. I'm going to talk a little bit about this as a pathway. Not all winged insects move by their wings. They sometimes move in trucks and refrigerated transport around the country, and this can on seedlings, and this can be a real risk pathway. So we'll get to that in a minute, but certainly using certified suppliers if possible. And then, of course, one that you can't control is wind dispersal, but you can do surveillance. And this is where my background is in. I work heavily in plant insect surveillance, just looking, and I know that growers do this all the time, but knowing what is abnormal and keeping eyes out. Trapping, yellow sticky traps are a great way of detecting low prevalence of new insect arrivals, especially winged insects. So I'd encourage the use of that. And recording observations. I know this is something that's not commonly done, but if you want to get out of quarantine, if they're placed in that, or if there is a restriction placed on your region, observation data recorded is actually really, really helpful to help your position regarding that. So if there is some way of recording those trapping and surveillance activities, then it may come to be a benefit for you in the future. Okay, so look, I've reached the end of the first section of this. What I'm going to do now is talk about leaf miners and then about fall arming them. But I just thought we might pause for a second there and see if there's anything else, Doris, you want to raise.
Any comments from our audience on issues that are, for biosecurity on farm, and how, somebody like Callum could help being being a coordinator. Or Ozzy, I mean, you're doing a bit of work in biosecurity. It seems to be one of the most difficult areas to work in because nobody wants to know until something happens. I mean, COVID is probably a good example of, biosecurity and traceability, which is working quite well in Australia, whereas in other countries it's hopeless because people haven't contained the disease early enough and haven't been strict enough. So it's a really good comparison when you look at what's happening in Australia and in other countries. So we should really apply the same to our plant diseases and pests.
Yeah, absolutely, Doris.
So are there any comments or questions from people listening in? No, everybody's quiet. I mean, you can also, of course, contact Callum or myself afterwards. And for the Tassie people, you can contact Ozzy.
Absolutely. You raise an important point about I like to try and sort of not to make this clear distinction between exotic, which is pests and diseases that are not currently in Australia, versus endemic or ones that have been introduced. Australia is a very big country. There are parts of Australia that are impacted by the arrival of pests. The longer we keep them out of other growing regions, such as Tasmania or other geographically distinct regions, the better. So, I think, and I also think that, as a microcosm, your farm is exactly like that as well. So I think that we should view biosecurity as being a continuum from things that are only present in Asia and in North America, right down to things that might be present on the farm next to yours, but not on yours. So the idea is to protect against the spread of harmful insects and pathogens, but where they've come from, it is not key. It's just the same systems that you would apply on farm, something that your neighbor might have and you don't have, can be used to help protect you from things that may have just arrived in the country. So speaking of that, I'm going to go on to talk a little bit about leaf miners. And so what I'm going to try and talk to you about is 3 different species of leaf miner, and these are regarded as high priority for the onions industry, as I've highlighted there. They are major agricultural pests from all around the world, right? As you can see, there's very, very little difference morphologically, or how they look, right? What I'm going to try and do is sort of talk to you about the symptoms, how they behave, and where you'd likely to find them, so that you can distinguish these between what you might already see as leaf mining damage already. So yeah, it's a tricky one, but the reason why these are regarded generally as a problem is that they are very small, as you can see in the image next to the 5-cent piece there. They spend a lot of their time buried in the leaf, so therefore they're very, very difficult to control by normal spray applications. And similarly, they have a stage where they are a pupal stage when they are in the soil and also protected from a range of spray applications. So basically, the only effective approach is to target these ones as translaminar systemic insecticide. And of course, as you would imagine, over the years they have developed a significant resistance profile to a range of modes of action. So the key thing about these things is that they're really hard to kill through traditional spray management methods. So therefore, we do not want them spread across the country. If we do, we want to have sustainable management practices so that you're not wasting a hell of a lot of spray, not contributing to resistance, and actually helping to manage the impact that they have on your production systems. So we've got one here, the American Serpentine leaf miner, which is not currently present in Australia. It is present in Indonesia. This is of high concern to the federal government and state governments because it's identified as one of our top 42 high priority plant pests. It's resistant and is to a range of chemical classes, and is a significant pest across a very broad range of crop groups. The vegetable leaf miner is what I'm going to talk. I'm not going to talk much about the Serpentine one because it's not present, but it's and a lot of what you could say about it is applicable to the other two. The vegetable leaf miner is where I'll speak to first, which is present in the north up here in Australia, and then we'll go into the Serpentine leaf miner, which is present in New South Wales, Queensland, and potentially Victoria. So those two ones will have an impact on your productivity if they come to your region. So getting through it, the vegetable, I'm going to share a lot of photos that look very similar. So I apologise for that. I'm going to try and get through it as quickly as possible. All of these come from the same family of Agramiaceae. Family. They are exotic, but now have started to arrive in Australia. So the vegetable leaf miner, now that's called Liriomyza sativa. I'm just going to use their common names, but I'll bounce backwards and forwards between the scientific name as well, because it does help to distinguish them. It's only present in the Torres Strait and Seychelles, which is in the Cape York Peninsula, the top tip of Australia's mainland. So they have made their way across the islands in the Torres Strait, and I'll get to that in a checking is a good illustration of the timeline, but it is a major pest, very small, very similar in appearance to the other leaf biters that we mentioned.
So Callum, is that because it's obviously likes tropical climate, how big is the risk for it to move south?
Great point there, because what I'm going to do to try and distinguish between the serpentine leaf miner, which is present in those southern states, and the vegetable leaf miner is their climatic range. Okay, so yes, you're right. The vegetable leaf miner, sativa, is a native of South America, but has a much greater tolerance to high temperature. So what it's done is moved from Argentina, moved around the world in the 30s to the 2000s. We first detected it in the Torres Strait in 2008 and began a process of jumping between the islands by naturally flying, but also moving with plant material. Because as you can imagine, these flies, and I'll show you them, they spend a lot of the time in leaf material, and of course that they can move with as produce is moved, or as seedlings are moved. Anyway, it moves down through the Torres Strait throughout, and in 2013, and then 2014, it is discovered on the Cape York Peninsula. It was deemed unable to be eradicated because it's a natural pathway. It means that there's a continual reservoir of these flies that are able to move into Australia through the pathway of the Torres Strait, so that there's no way that we can permanently eradicate them. But part of the response to that was then to invest industry money into preparedness plans, and we have got a significant amount of resources that have informed this presentation and are available through multiple sources. But I would encourage you to visit the AUSVEG website, which has many of them, and basically it shows about how to best manage this if it were to break out of the Cape York Peninsula. So it's currently present in Australia, but it's only confined to the very top. Okay, so as I was sort of mentioning, eggs are laid on the leaf or stem, and basically the larvae they tunnel and mine and through the leaf, and that's what this, as you can see at the top right there, these mines are what you're looking for. Now, there's similarities with other leaf miners, but we're talking about a range of host plants. And if you're seeing this in your onion crops, then I would be significantly concerned. The damage that they do with this mining, we'll get to that. But anyway, so the larvae emerge and they pupate in the soil beneath the plant, which of course may protect them as well from any foliar insecticide applications. And then they hatch into an adult in a couple of weeks.
So at which stage can they actually be controlled? Obviously not while they're mining the leaf. So the windows would be for the adult and the larvae? Or?
They can be contained in the leaf if you are using translaminar or systemic insecticides. And I know that a lot of work has been done to get permits issued by the APVMA for vegetable leaf miners or a range of exotic leaf miners. So there are a range of options available. The problem is that too many applications of the same class will lead to resistance. So So anyway, as you can see, the range of crops that this fly impacts are significant. And of course, it does include onions and garlic. Okay, there's also the issue of weed hosts, and this is really what's made it impossible to eradicate, is that especially Sriracha, which is present in the north, along right down the Cape York Peninsula, which may provide a pathway, a host pathway down from the top of Australia to the growing regions in northern Queensland, such as Atherton. The weed hosts are going to mean that insect populations can consistently survive in the environment all throughout the year and not be contained by traditional spray management methods. So I think we're left with management through biological control options and predators. And so there's a whole range of really, really great resources available that have been developed by CSER and University of Melbourne on the effectiveness of various forms of parasitic wasps in containing the leaf miners. Anyway, but just to go back to the damage, as you can see, what happens is that the mining upsets photosynthesis. It also makes the leafy material subject to arrival of fungal or other forms of pathogens getting into the plant. If you're going for anything that's leafy based on the aesthetics and selling, such as leafy veg, then of course it's unsellable, unmarketable. But for you in the onions industry, it will be the damage that it does to photosynthesis that will have an impact on yield, distortion of the bulbs, and the potential ease of spread of a whole range of.
So do they spread virus diseases?
No, not that I wouldn't want to say no, but I'm pretty sure no. No,
Okay.
We'll have to check that up, but I'm not. That's not something that I've heard.
Yeah, I haven't heard either, but just wondered.
Yeah, and as I said, the impact is unhappy retailers and consumers, of course, because what happens if you're picking when the eggs have just been laid, there isn't any mines to distinguish, and so by the time that they actually get to consumer, those larval stages have grown and the mines have developed in product, and that can lead to unsightly product and
But they wouldn't even be in the onion bulb, would they? They'd just be in the leaves, so affect spring onions or a leek.
Yes, absolutely. Sorry, yes, no, absolutely. That will be a problem for spring onion leek growers. It won't be a problem for your onion production, but like I say, sick crops and distorted, damaged bulbs. So that's really the yield loss is going to be the key issue. Disrupted trade is potentially an option for serpentine, American serpentine leaf miner. States do close borders. But the important thing I would like to make clear about this is these leaf miners have been, there has been no interstate movement restrictions, which I will get to in a second. Oh, sorry, I missed that. So that means that there's the impact will be that if you detect something, suspect something, especially with the serpentine leaf miner, then that won't subject to the chances of quarantine. So I just want to make that clear with both the fall armyworm and the serpentine leaf miner. They have been deemed unable to be eradicated. They have been deemed present in across a range of states, so that if you do start to see symptoms, do not fear reporting that to the government for fear of quarantine. The government government researchers and entomologists should be able to help you determine whether this is American serpentine leaf miner, Hudibrensis, or the vegetable leaf miner, and help with management in that regard. Okay, so finished with that. I'm just going to do one more slide on American serpentine leaf miner because I've mentioned a number of times. It is not present in Australia. It is present in Indonesia, and it is a big issue. So currently there is trapping programs or surveillance work conducted by the federal government and state governments in the north to make sure that if it were to arrive in areas such as the Torres Strait or Northern Territory, then that it's detected early, and an industry has plenty of time to prepare themselves for the management of this new pest, because another species is just going to make the burden on industry a lot greater, because you've got 3 different species that are resistant to a range of chemical classes of insecticide or are very, very difficult to control. So leaving really only integrated pest management options as being a viable management alternative. So that's what we're going to keep an eye out for. But I do understand how similar they look. So we've finished with the veggie leaf miner. I'm going to now turn to the serpentine leaf miner and talk a little bit more in detail. I've referenced it before, but before that, Doris, is there any thoughts or questions you have?
I guess the major ones would be for people I would think is how high is the risk for some of the more northern incursions to make it south, where the majority of the onion industry is located, like South Australia, Tasmania. What's the risk? WI.
That's a good point. That's the vegetable leaf miner, the Lyromyza sativa, is more accustomed climates to the north, and Caesar has some great models showing, computer modeling showing its range of comfort in terms of viability of survival. That will be an issue for those guys in the north. So this is where I really want to turn to to a serpentine leaf miner, because that is much more likely to be an issue for those growing in the southern regions, because I mentioned that there are distinctions between the comfortable host range or temperature ranges that these two species have, and so therefore the serpentine leaf miner is much more at home in a cooler climate. So I'll show you a map in one of these upcoming slides about where the risk zones are for this. Serpentine leaf miner arrived, I believe, in cut flowers in Sydney not long ago. It was being detected in January last year, but only in October was it reported. An incursion response was initiated. Attempts were made to eradicate it. This is in the Sydney Basin area. So what happens is that government staff went and put out traps and did surveillance, trying to find out where the American serpentine leaf miner was present and where it wasn't present. That's called delimiting, and basically it means looking and tracing forward, tracing back where products have come and gone from. That basically led them to a range of nurseries where that had been impacted, and then there was the issue of movement from those nurseries. So basically seedlings that had been infected by serpentine leaf miner and those products had gone out to around the country. That traceback was successfully done. It is believed that it is not present in South Australia or West Australia, and they are doing ongoing in Tasmania, and they are doing ongoing surveillance work to make sure that it has not travelled there yet. The case for Victoria is a little bit vague, but I know that the Victorian government is out there looking and requesting that anyone who does see these symptoms in Victoria to please report it to Agriculture Victoria. But it is certain that it is present in numbers in New South Wales and South Australia. Sorry,
so it's only a matter of time, really, for it to move.
Exactly right. So the American serpentine leaf miner, like I say, is subject to heat. What we found over the summer in New South Wales was that extreme temperatures, high temperatures in the 30, 35 level, killed off populations. So for those growing in the hotter climates, then this is less of a risk for you. For those growing in a cooler climate, this is probably, I would say, one of your high priority risks. So just to reiterate or clarify what I was talking about before, it was reported in October 2020. But it had the damage had been observed since February 2020. Nursery was the first infected property, and like that, while they were looking, they found 37 properties. But basically, it was deemed unable to be eradicated. Because of nursery movements, the serpentine leaf miner was able to move into the Fassifern Valley and the Darling Downs in southern southern Queensland. Potentially, it has been suspected in maybe other areas as well in Queensland. So I'd encourage those guys in other parts of Queensland to be on the lookout for it. It doesn't fly particularly well, but it does move with produce, and it's not just seedlings. It can be produce from markets, from supermarkets, and elsewhere. So the real risk is that it can move in green leafy material, and can move quite quickly if on a truck or in people's shopping. Okay. Positive point is that there is no movement controls. So in many cases, these incursions that we face results in states closing their borders to movement of produce of host plants. There isn't any case, I believe, any restrictions apart from some in West Australia introducing movement conditions on nursery stock and some produce. So that's actually a rather positive outcome, because usually those restrictions cost far more than the actual impact of the pest.
Well, I guess
So
it can be positive or negative. If there's no restrictions, the likelihood of it moving in might be higher, because there's always people carrying stuff around even though they're not meant to.
yeah,
So
exactly right. Yeah, no, that's fair. As you can see, Leopoldo has put a great illustration, provided a great illustration of the larvae mining within protection within the leaf. So there are four stages, as I've mentioned: egg, larval, pupa, and adult. And of course, yes, several generations can occur in a single crop. Okay, so here we go. This is more mines, more damage. As you can see, that really opens up the leafy material to the prospect of pathogens, fungal pathogens arriving, getting established in the plant, but also, as you can see, the ability to photosynthesize and produce a marketable and profitable yield is significantly limited. Here we go again. Onions are one of the very large range of host crops. Okay, so this is what I was mentioning in terms of a map of potentials, establishment potential. And as you can see, the dark purple is the areas where year-round the serpentine leaf miner will be able to thrive, basically. You can get these maps with the other leaf miners from Caesar, the link there. But as you can see, it's not a good picture for onion growers. From my understanding of where onions are produced, there's a lot of purple areas affected. Nearly there. Just finishing up with this. So, of course, as you can see, the impact we've had, mining can kill plants, especially the young plants, young seedlings. Doesn't take a lot of mining to basically kill off seedling, so young sown plants as they emerge. Okay, so I mentioned the work that we do and in terms of transition to management. So there is a transition to management program currently funded that is supported by the Onions Fund. So it's running for a couple of years. Actually, it's been 2 years to 2023, helping to develop in-field diagnostic testing. And as you can imagine, distinguishing between various leaf mines is a seriously difficult endeavor. So in-field molecular testing is a really important area to focus on. Developing a better surveillance protocol, like I say, it's very difficult to tell and to distinguish those mines. The protocol that we have, vegetable leaf miner, requires slow movement through the crop to detect early stages, so that we can be certain, 99% probability, that whether or not the leaf miner is present. So this is quite a taxing and labour-intensive effort on behalf of crop scouts and agronomists. So a protocol that can be used to distinguish whether the leaf miners are present and to what extent they're present, because of course, economic thresholds and action thresholds are really key. If there's just very few, 1% prevalence, then that may not mean that you need to be doing anything. And in fact, it might help inform decision making on chemical application, because like I said, the broad spectrum insecticides have a very detrimental effect on the impact that parasitic wasps have on these leaf miners. So from the work that has been conducted in the north of Australia, surveys have found that a range of parasitic wasps have been preying on the vegetable leaf miner up there, and significantly curtailing the populations up there. So as with all stories about integrated pest management, it goes along similar lines, that you're looking for the presence of predators, withholding insecticides that would kill them, only using insecticide classes that would distinguish and protect predatory insects, or withholding insecticides applications completely, so to allow for the populations of beneficial predators to increase and contain and curtail, restrict the spread of increase in populations of the target pest, in this case the serpentine or vegetable leaf miner. Industry management plans are key to provide best management practice for industry, and to provide advice on the general status of management for these things, to govern interstate controls and so forth. We need to have these in place, so as to stop any unnecessary restrictions on trade in the future. Of course, there's an engagement strategy as well. It's no good doing all this work if industry doesn't know about it, and that's really key. An extension engagement approach to industry, so that your onions extension officers or staff can get that information out to industry, and you guys as industry can use the best management approach for these pests. Spread models, surveying parasitoids, and crop protection analysis, gap analysis, are other areas which are a key focus. Okay, so basically that's it for the leaf miners. I'm only going to touch briefly on armyworms, or fall armyworm. Just before we get to that, and that will be the last section of my presentation, I just thought if I'd go back to you, Doris, is there anything else that you want to add or question?
No, I think you covered everything quite extensively. So if there's any question from the audience, I think just have a quick overview of the fall armyworm, and that'll be it.
Okay, perfect. All right, fall armyworm is not a high priority pest on the onions industry biosecurity plan. It is a new arrival in Australia, very, very recent. But it is can be a significant pest for onions. So I thought I'd raise this for you to say that if not now, in the future, it may be a factor or something that you need to manage. So, okay, another invasive pest, native to tropical regions of the Americas. Now, it only moved out of the Americas into Africa in 2016. It has arrived here in January 2020. So it has made its way from across Africa, impacting all production regions, or very broad range of plant production regions in the African continent, India, China, and Southeast Asia in a matter of 4 years. So this is why maybe it hasn't been highlighted as being a significant threat, because it's such a fast mover. The reviews might not have had time to incorporate it into your industry biosecurity plans. But for us, we've been on the lookout for it in the vegetable industry for about a year now, and it's stunning how quickly it has moved across vast areas of the globe and decimated such a broad range of host crops and industries. So yeah, so basically the biology is that eggs are laid in clusters of 1 to 200 eggs. They are covered in one in a single cluster. They're covered in some the scales from the mother moth and protected in some way. They hatch into larvae. They start feeding. They can be cannibalistic feeders. They basically start really getting into the leaf material. They pupate in the soil, and then they are protected from spray applications again, and then emerge as adults. Now, as adults, they're quite large. Females are capable of traveling 100 kilometers in a night or 500 kilometers in a lifetime. And this is the key to their movement. This is the key to why they've been able to spread so quickly across the globe. So as a grower, you will be subject to nightly flights of female moths laying eggs in clusters, and having to, I guess, manage that on a daily basis. New clusters emerging in your crop each day, and this leads, as you can imagine, to all sorts of spray management or crop management issues, because you're not having a single infestation, you're having multiple arrivals. The key to managing this is to get a insecticide on early as the clusters are hatching, but before the larvae can reach safety and security further down or in the enclosed areas of the plant. Okay, so what plants are we talking about here? A lot. Sweet corn and sorghum are the two areas that have been hardest hit in Australia in this past year, that the arrival of the fall armyworm has had its impact. We've only had it for 1 year. In that 1 year, it has managed to move from the Torres Strait all the way down to Tasmania, and similarly across from Darwin all the way down to Perth. All right, so it's a massive mover, and we have not reached the full extent of where populations will be able to establish year round, or where they will be able to come down and migratorily impact production. But onions is regarded as a host and has been significantly impacted in Africa and other parts of the world. So what I'm saying is that although currently the insect populations have a taste for certain commodities, when pressure or population densities increase, we start to see them move to other crop types. We're already seeing this with capsicums and with chilies in the north. Okay, so here's some other photos of the egg cluster and the young larvae clustering on a leaf. And that's really the key time there. They have to be targeted by a foliar.
So it's the underside of the leaf, isn't it?
Unfortunately, where I've been in northern Queensland for the last month and currently based now. What I'm seeing is they're in such numbers, they're everywhere.
Okay.
But yes, yeah, they do eat each other as well as the plants. But you will get singular or few large caterpillars later growth stages, but at newly emergent growth stages, you're getting large numbers all over the leaf. And the key is to catch them when they're at that exposed state, rather than when they move further down into some level of safety and security within the plant, or in the case of onions within the down towards the bulb. Here, as you can see, is just an illustration. I understand that this is sweet corn, but just to see what the impact. And I was seeing 90% losses on crops. It's devastating. So yeah, the key message to onion growers is that this may be you in a year or two's time, as insect populations move from their primary selection or host preference to those to others as the need to feed emerges. as you can see here, similarly with the capsicum. So what we're finding is that as populations grow in sweet corn, they're moving into crops that are neighbouring and just basically taking advantage of whatever's there and getting into them. As of course, as you can see here, they're in the capsicum, and so there's only a very small hole, which can lead to all sorts of trouble with consumer returns and dissatisfaction with the product. Yeah, it's not a good thing. Parasitism is key, I think, to managing these populations. Over in Asia, this has been a very it's been pushed and has been regarded as successful. Unfortunately, with the feedback I've got recently, that they're seeing that the trichogramma releases have not had a significant impact on the level of parasitism of the eggs, unfortunately, because that's a standard by control agent practice for the control of Verpa or native budworm, I believe. So unfortunately, it seems to be that the clustering of the eggs and the scale has had a deterrent effect on that parasitism of those eggs. But what we have also seen is the other biological control options that have been targeting the worms, fall armyworm, seal bugs, earwings, and assassin bugs. So that's positive, and it's really key to, as like I say again, with integrated pest management approach to target the pest, but without impacting the predators. So yeah, just that's where I'm going to end up. I'm just one final point about the fall armyworm is that there seems to be sort of a natural level of climate constriction to where they will be able to be happily year-round living, and where they will come in and migrate in the warmer months of the year. Where that line is in Australia is not particularly clear at the moment, but modelling work has been done. But basically, the chances are that those growing in the southern regions of Australia will not have to deal year-round with fall armyworm, but they will receive flights coming in and need to manage those egg clusters as they are laid, if you want to protect your crop from the impact of that feeding. So for the guys up in the north, it's going to be a year-round continual problem. For the guys in the south, it's going to be a seasonal problem. The extent to which that is going to be, how much of an impact that it's going to have, we're going to have to wait a few years, wait a year or so to see how long, to see the impact and level that the population gets to. Because, like I say, it's only been here for a year and a bit. And from what I'm hearing from the growers in the north, the vegetable growers in the north, things are looking worse this year than they were last year, unsurprisingly. So yeah, with that, I'm going to leave it now. Just there's a range of resources available from the AUSVEG website. Feel free to come along and download it and read it, read about them. If there's anything here that I've spoken to today that interests you. Otherwise, also feel comfortable contacting me. Thank you very much for your time. And Doris, if there's any questions or comments, I'd be happy to answer.
Yeah, so open to everybody if there's any questions. I mean, we all know that the fall armyworm has made it to Tasmania. I know from experience that certainly whitefly happily lives all year round where I am. So we shouldn't be too, we should be careful. We should not assume that it will die over winter. We might have survivors, not as bad as in the north, but we shouldn't be sleeping. Yeah, and keep a watch.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I mean, they are very noticeable, I have to say. They're the opposite of these leaf miners in the sense that there's no confusion.
Yeah. So if there's no other questions, I can't see. So as Callum said, please contact Callum, myself, or Ozzy as the vegetable IDO. And thanks very much. We recorded this presentation, so there will be a good chance that people will watch it in their own time. So thanks a lot, Callum, and thanks
Yes, pleasure.
everybody.
Absolute pleasure.
Thanks everybody for listening in.
See you later.
Okay, bye bye.